By the time the last of Margot's family finally cleared out, I was standing in her parents' kitchen in Oakville, holding a garbage bag full of paper plates, wearing a borrowed apron that said, "World's Oakiest Chef," while her Uncle Terry asked me for the second time that evening whether I was planning to make things official soon. I laughed because that was easier than answering honestly. I set the bag down near the recycling bin, untied the apron, and told him I was just here to help. He gave me the look people give you when they think you're lying, but decide not to push it. Then, he grabbed his jacket and left. That was how it went at the Whitfield house. You showed up once, you helped carry something, and then you were folded into the family like a crease that nobody bothered to iron out. I had been showing up for almost 7 years. Margot and I met in our second year at McMaster. She had borrowed my notes for a Thursday lecture she'd missed because her roommate was having what she called a medium-sized crisis involving a boyfriend and a borrowed car, and I had said sure, fine, take the binder. She returned it 2 days later with a coffee and a post-it that said, "You saved my GPA. I owe you one." I told her it was just notes. She said it wasn't. 7 years later, I knew which burner on her parents' stove ran hot. I knew her dad kept the good scotch behind the pasta in the pantry. I knew her younger brother Eli was the one you gave the last piece of cake to if you wanted the evening to end quietly. I had moved Margot twice, once across Hamilton and once up to Toronto when she got the job at the design firm on King Street. I had driven her mom to a follow-up appointment the winter she hurt her knee because Margot was stuck in a client meeting and her dad was in Sudbury for work. Her mom had asked me to stop for a Tim Hortons on the way back. I ordered her a large double without asking. She hadn't told me that was what I wanted. She just looked at me when I handed it over and said, "You're a good one, Connor." I had been carrying that sentence around for about 3 years, not in a weird way. Just quietly, the anniversary party had been for her parents. 32 years. The backyard had been strung with lights. There was a caterer who did something impressive with brisket, and Margot's aunt had given a toast that made her mom cry in the good way. Margot had been everywhere all at once, the way she always was at family things. Fixing the centerpiece, refilling her nan's water, pulling her brother away from the speaker when he kept trying to plug in his phone to change the music. She had been wearing this dusty, green dress that had no business existing in the same room as fluorescent lighting, and somehow looked perfect anyway. At some point around 9 she had come up beside me near the drinks table, reached past me for the sparkling water, and said, without looking up, "You didn't have to come all the way from the annex for this." "Your mom invited me," I said. "My mom invites the mail carrier to things. I like your family." She looked at me then, just for a second. Something moved through her face that I didn't have a name for. Then she poured her water and walked back toward her nan, and I stood there holding a half-eaten piece of rye bread and pretending I wasn't watching her go. Her brother Eli sidled up beside me with the energy of someone who had already had 2 beers and was thinking about a third. He was 24 and had recently decided that being the youngest meant he could say whatever came to mind. "You know," he said, "statistically, most people at this party are related to someone here. I'm aware." You're not also aware." He pointed a carrot stick at me. And yet, I agreed. He grinned and wandered off. I turned back to the drinks table and poured myself a water I didn't want. By 10:30, the older guests had started filtering out. Margot's nan was driven home by her aunt. Her dad's colleague from the firm shook hands with everyone twice and left. The backyard emptied in stages until it was just the family and a few close friends, the kind who stayed to help fold up the rental chairs. Margot's parents drifted upstairs, sometime around 11. Her mom, still holding the small card her dad had given her at dinner, her dad's hand at the small of her back. It was the kind of thing you weren't supposed to stare at. I looked away. Eli, Margot's cousin Danica, and a friend of Margot's from the design firm named Priyanka ended up around the kitchen island. Someone found the leftover butter tarts from the caterer. Someone else opened the bottle of Riesling that had been sitting in the fridge since Christmas. I was rinsing glasses at the sink when Margot came back in from checking on the backyard lights. She leaned against the counter beside me and stole a butter tart off the tray. "Those were supposed to be for tomorrow," Danica said. "Tomorrow Margot will feel guilty," Margot said. "Tonight she does not." She ate it in 2 bites. I handed her a napkin. She took it without asking. Priyanka was telling a story about a client who had asked her firm to redesign their entire office based on a Pinterest board that was, in her words, aggressively nautical. Eli kept interrupting to ask clarifying questions that had nothing to do with the story. Danica was laughing at both of them. Margot was close enough to me that her elbow was on the counter near mine, and every time she reached for her wine glass, her arm brushed past me. I had gotten good at noticing things like that, and filing them under does not mean anything. Then, her phone buzzed. She looked at it, made a face that meant it was actually important, and stepped into the hallway. I heard her say, "Yeah, no, I see it. Hang on," in the voice she used when a client file was going sideways. Danica topped up her wine. Priyanka pulled out her phone to look up a photo of the nautical Pinterest board in question. Eli helped himself to a second butter tart and sat on the counter, which was something Margot's mom would not have allowed if she were still in the room. That left me by the sink with the last few glasses to rinse, and the easy, comfortable quiet of a kitchen after a party. Eli watched me for a second in the way he sometimes did, where you could see him deciding whether to say something. "What?" I said. He chewed. Swallowed. "Nothing. You're doing the thing where you think something and then you think about whether to say it. I'm just standing here. You're doing it right now." He looked at the hallway where Margot had gone. Then he looked back at me. She told Danica that the last guy she went on dates with kept reminding her of someone. I rinsed a wine glass very carefully. "Okay. Like, multiple guys, apparently. Same thing." I set the glass upside down on the rack. "Ellie, I'm just repeating what Danica told me." "Danica's right here," Danica said from across the island, without looking up from Priyanka's phone. "You're fine with this," Eli said. "I said it to you in confidence," Danica said, still not looking up, which clearly meant nothing. "He should know. It's not your thing to tell. Someone has to." Priyanka looked between all of us slowly. "I feel like I'm missing context." "You are," Danica said. "Should I?" "Yes," Danica said. "Let's go look at the garden lights." She put a hand on Priyanka's arm and steered her toward the back door with the smooth efficiency of someone used to managing situations. And then it was just me and Eli. I turned off the tap, dried my hands on the dish towel, took a breath. "What do you mean?" I said, reminded her of someone. Ellie looked at me like I was being deliberately slow. "Come on. I'm asking. Connor. I'm literally asking you to finish the sentence." He set the butter tart down. "She compares them to you. Like, not in a list way. Just the way she feels around you. That's what she uses as the thing. The standard. Whatever you want to call it." He said it the way you say something you've been sitting on for a while and have finally decided is someone else's problem. Danica's known for like 2 years. I've known for less than that. Figured you probably had a right to know too. The kitchen was still doing all its normal kitchen things. The fridge hummed. The dishwasher was on its dry cycle, making small clicking sounds. Outside, through the window above the sink, I could see the string lights over the backyard still on, blurring softly against the dark. I looked at Eli. He looked back at me, with the expression of someone who had just handed over a fragile thing, and was hoping he hadn't dropped it first. "How long has this been going on?" I said. "The comparing? All of it." He picked up the butter tart again. "Longer than you've probably been doing the same thing, I'd guess." I didn't answer that. Margot's voice came from the hallway, wrapping up the call. Eli grabbed his wine glass and said, "Quiet and quick. I'm going to go be somewhere else," and disappeared around the corner before she came back. She walked into the kitchen with her phone in her hand and her shoes off, which she'd switched to at some point in the last hour. She stopped just past the doorway. That was one of the things about Margot. She read a room before she walked into it. It was a skill she had sharpened over years of managing difficult clients and a family that communicated, mostly in subtext. She looked at the island, at the empty counter, where Danica and Priyanka had been. At me by the sink, at the general shape of the room, which must have been broadcasting something, because she said, "Where'd everyone go?" "Garden lights," I said. "Ellie?" "Also garden lights." She looked at me more carefully. "What happened?" "Nothing." She set her phone on the counter. "Connor. It was nothing. You're drying a dish towel that's already dry." I looked down. She was right. I put it on the rack. Margot crossed her arms, then uncrossed them, then picked up her wine glass and held it without drinking from it. "What did Eli say?" It wasn't a question really. More like she already knew the category of thing that had happened and was just asking me to confirm the shape of it. "He said something he probably got from Danica," I said. "Danica's been threatening to say something for 8 months." That landed differently than I expected. "You knew she was going to say something." "I knew she wanted to." Margot set the wine glass down. "I told her not to." "Why?" She looked at the counter. "Because I didn't know what you'd do with it." The kitchen felt very quiet. Outside, faintly, I could hear Eli saying something in the backyard, and Priyanka laughing, and the soft click of the string lights against the fence in the wind. "Is it true?" I said. "What he said?" Margot was quiet for long enough that I heard the fridge cycle on. "What exactly did he say?" she asked. "That you compare the people you date to how you feel around me." She looked up. Her face wasn't surprised. It was careful. The way a person looks when they've been rehearsing a version of this conversation in their head for a while. And the actual version has arrived slightly ahead of schedule. "It's not like a checklist," she said. "I didn't think it was a checklist. It's not. I don't sit across from someone at dinner and think, well, Connor would have ordered better." She paused. "Except sometimes. But that's not the whole thing." I almost smiled. "What's the whole thing?" She turned to face the window. Outside, the string lights were still on. They were the same lights her dad had strung up every summer, for as long as I'd known this family. Cheap, warm bulbs on a long orange extension cord, the kind that went on sale at Canadian Tire every May. "The whole thing," she said. "Is that with you? I never have to translate myself." She kept looking at the window. "When I'm tired, you already know before I say it. When I'm upset, I don't have to explain the backstory because you were there for the backstory. When something good happens, I don't have to give you context for why it matters because you already know why it matters." She stopped. "Being around you feels like not working. And then I go on a date with someone perfectly fine and I spend the whole time aware that I'm working, and that's the thing I keep measuring." My chest felt tight. I wanted to say her name but wasn't sure what I'd do after. "Margot," I said. She turned back from the window. "I know." "You know what?" "I know that this is a stupid position to have put us in." "You didn't put us in anything." "I've known this for a while, Connor." I didn't say anything. "Neither did I." That stopped her. She looked at me with something changing in her face. "What?" I said neither did I. She was quiet. "How long?" "Longer than I'd like to admit out loud in your parents' kitchen." A sound outside. Eli's voice again, something about the lights, and then quiet. Margot looked at me steadily. "You're very good at not showing it. You're very good at making it easy to be around you." It got confusing. She let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "That might be the nicest complaint anyone has ever made about me." I wasn't complaining. "No," she said. "You weren't." We stood on opposite sides of the island. The butter tart tray was still between us, half empty. The wine bottle was mostly done. 3 glasses sat rinsed and upside down by the rack. Every time I almost said something, I said, there was a reason not to. You were in the middle of the Brampton project and working 16-hour days. Or we just had a good week, and I didn't want to make it complicated. Or we were here at your family's house, and I thought, I'm not going to do this between the salad course and the brisket. That got a real laugh out of her, short and tired and genuine. And then when there wasn't a reason, I said, I invented one. I told myself I was being mature, that I was protecting what we had. She nodded slowly. I told myself the same thing. I looked at her. That's frustrating. Incredibly, she said. We should probably be annoyed at each other. We wasted a lot of Tuesday nights. We did not waste them. We could have been. Connor, she said it quietly. We weren't wasting them. We just weren't calling them the right thing yet. I let that sit for a second. Then she said, write in the comments. Did we do the right thing, protecting what we had for so long? Or did we just find a very elegant way to be scared? A door opened at the back of the house, and Eli's voice got louder for a second, then faded again. He was either giving us space or genuinely distracted by the lights. With Eli, it was hard to tell. You know, I said. If I'd known you felt this way, I would have said something 3 years ago. What would you have said? I thought about it. Probably nothing smooth, probably exactly what I actually wanted to say, which is that I'm already halfway through my life most weeks, and the part I look forward to most is wherever you happen to be in it. Her eyes went soft. That's embarrassingly well put. I had time to practice, in my head, for years. She crossed the kitchen, not fast. She stopped on my side of the island, close enough that I could see the small silver chain she wore, that her mom had given her, the one she hardly ever took off. She looked up at me. I don't want to be something we handle carefully, she said. I want it to be real. It already is real. It's been real for a long time. We just weren't calling it that. She nodded once, like she was deciding something. Then she said, Okay. Okay what? Okay. Let's call it that. I reached up and tucked back the piece of hair that had worked loose from her braid near her temple, the same way I'd almost done a dozen times before, but never let myself finish. She didn't move back. So I kissed her. It was not a grand dramatic thing. There was no music. No one was watching. The kitchen light above us was slightly too bright, and the dishwasher was still clicking, and at least one of the string lights outside plus was probably about to burn out. It was warm and unhurried. It was warm and unhurried and felt like a thing that had been waiting patiently for a long time to happen. When we moved apart, she stayed close. Eli is going to be insufferable, she said. He already is. He's going to bring this up at every family dinner for the next decade. He earned it, I said. A little. She laughed against my shoulder. This time when she leaned there, I didn't tell myself it didn't mean what it meant. The back door opened and Eli came in first, saw us and stopped so fast that Priyanka bumped into him from behind. Danica appeared behind Priyanka, looked over their heads, and pressed her lips together in the exact expression of someone who has been right about something for 2 years and is being very disciplined about not saying so. Eli pointed at me, then at Margot. Then made a gesture like he was connecting dots on a board. I'd like partial credit, he said. You get no credit, Margot said. Danica knew first and she gets no credit either, I said. Rude, Danica said, without any real heat in it. Priyanka looked between all of us slowly. I genuinely still have no idea what's happening, and I'm choosing to be at peace with that. We cleaned up the rest of the kitchen together, all 5 of us, in the way you do when nobody wants the night to end quite yet. Eli dried glasses dramatically. Danica found a container for the leftover brisket and labeled it with masking tape in handwriting that said, Don't touch this, Eli. Priyanka swept the front hall and found someone's forgotten umbrella and left it by the door. One of them is chipped. Margot packed the remaining butter tarts into a tin that had been in her mom's cupboard since approximately forever. At some point, Margot's mom appeared in the kitchen doorway in her housecoat, took in the scene, looked at me, looked at Margot, looked at the general way we were standing near each other, and said nothing for a moment. Then she said, "Connor, you're here for breakfast, yes?" I looked at Margot. Margot looked at the ceiling. "Sure," I said, "if that's okay." Her mom nodded like this was a sensible resolution to something. "Good. There are extra towels in the linen closet." She looked at Margot. "Don't let him sleep on that couch. It's bad for his back." She paused. "I know because your father is also stubborn about it." Then she went back upstairs. Eli stared at the doorway. "She's been waiting to say that for like 4 years. Ellie," Margot said. "I'm just saying, go to bed. I'm going. He grabbed one last butter tart on the way out. Danica hugged us both, which felt like a seal of approval that had been pending for longer than I knew. Priyanka said it had been a lovely evening and she would see Margot Monday, and then they were gone, and the house was quiet in the way houses get quiet after a full day. Not empty, just settled. Margot turned off the kitchen light. Through the window I could still see the string lights over the backyard, a little dim now, one of them flickering. "Come outside for a minute," she said. We went out the back door. The night was cool the way Ontario nights get in late summer. That edge of something coming, not cold yet, but nodding at it. The backyard smelled like grass, and the last of the citronella candles that had burned down hours ago. The chairs were still up. The lights were still on. Margot sat on the edge of the patio, feet on the grass. I sat beside her. We didn't say anything for a while, which with us had never been something that needed filling. After a while she said, 7 years. Give or take. We're not getting those back. No, I said. But I think we used them okay. She thought about that. Yeah, she said. I think so too. The one flickering string light steadied. The yard was quiet. Somewhere down the street a car passed. The night sat around us like it had nowhere else to be. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and this time I didn't talk myself out of anything. A month later, Eli introduced me to a cousin at a Thanksgiving dinner in Oakville as basically my brother-in-law, but they're doing it at their own speed. Don't ask. Margot told him she was changing the Wi-Fi password. He said she couldn't, because he knew where the router was. She said she'd move the router. The table laughed. Under it, her hand found mine and stayed there, easy and sure, like it had been doing it for years. Because in all the ways that mattered, it had.